اللي بالسابق. ماشي الصبح.
خلينا بمكان غابة مو للإنسان، خلينا تعرف الغابة الملك زين. وهذا اللي واجهنا صعوبة هسه. اكو ناس تأذت، اكو ناس ماتت بهاي اثناء محاولتهم الى الذهاب الى لندن.
والله اول ما دخلت الى المعسكر عيناي اهملا دموعا، يعني لا استطيع ان اصف ذاك الموقف. وعندما رأيت اعلام الامام الحسين عليه السلام ترفرف على تلك الخيمة، على هذه الخيمة المباركة، وأعلام أبي الفضل العباس، تبادر إلي معسكر أبي الفضل العباس، معسكر الإمام الحسين عليه السلام. ازددت بكاء.
أحد الأخوة هم كان من العراق زين، صعد داخل شاحنة زين، والبضاعة كانت يعني ثقيلة ومالت عليه أثناء قيادة السائق للسيارة، وضربت البضاعة ما تتوفى.
أم البنين غدت أم الأنين لها يا بكاها ونحبها لا مولاك إمام يا حسين يا حسين، مولاك إمام يا حسين يا حسين، مولاك إمام يا حسين يا حسين يا حسين يا حسين. لا إله إلا الله، لا إله إلا الله، محمد رسول الله.
فأنا أرجو من إخوان الشيعة أن يلتفتون، اللي عندهم إمكانية إعلامية يلتفتون إلى هذا المعسكر المظلوم، معسكر جنجل اللي هو في كاليه.
I've been to Karbala, I've been to Syria, I've done the ziyarah of Sayyidah Zainab, and if you ever wander around the local areas, you can tell it's the Middle East, you can tell they're lesser economically developed countries. However, when you're in Europe, it's not something you ever experience. Over here we have plumbing systems, we have houses, the bricks, they're made properly, people have human rights, the European Union boast about their human rights record and things like this. And when you walk into the camp in Calais, it reminded me of when I actually went to India and visited one of the villages over there. It's just, you don't expect it to be in Europe. You have to keep reminding yourself, this is France, this isn't the Middle East, this isn't Pakistan, this is France.
The first thing you see when you enter the camp is first you see just tents everywhere, and you don't expect to see that many tents. You hear so much about the refugee camp, you understand, or you've been told that there's going to be so many refugees, but you actually see more than you expect, and it's just a shock because it's worse than you expect, and you expect bad. So you can imagine how bad it really is.
To see humans living in those conditions, like I'd been told it was called the jungle, and to be honest I didn't know why. I was expecting some sort of government run refugee camp, but it wasn't. It was makeshift homes in the middle of sand and trees, hence they nicknamed it the jungle. And it was too much to take in, seeing the water system, seeing the houses, seeing the toilets. It's terrible.
You bring yourself to think that I'm in a Western country, I'm in France, which you imagine to have a level of living, a standard of living, and especially when we're from the West, we don't often come into contact with that kind of poverty. And so you're immediately exposed to a world within a different world. And so when I walked in, even though I had already seen videos and pictures and acquainted myself in order to prepare myself with what I'm going to see, it's still very shocking, because you're now feeling the poverty, you're now seeing it for real. It's not something that has been presented to you on the TV. You yourself are exposing yourself to the reality of the situation.
The refugee camp in Calais, infamously known as the jungle, is home to some 5,000 people from all over the world. Whether fleeing terror, drought, political oppression, or just a better life, each person has a different story to tell. However, in Calais, they all share one thing in common, and that's the unenviable plight of life in the jungle. With political tensions at fever pitch, both governments in the UK and France are under pressure to cut the flow of migrants into their respective territories. As the media storm reaches its pinnacle, caged fences were erected around the camp, turning the refugee jungle into what some may describe as an open-air prison. Crammed into tents and makeshift shelters, the refugees remain, left holding on to hope for a better tomorrow. With conditions more suited to the third world, those visiting the camp are left without much to say. How has it come to this, right here in this part of the world? The land of liberty, equality and fraternity.
والله حالة يعني يرثى لها، وضعية تعبانة نهائيا. يعني شوف عينك، يعني شوف لا سبح، لا ملابس نظيفة، لا مكان نظيف، يعني الوساخة والزبالة يعني معبيتنا تأبي. زين، وضعية تعبانة كلش، وعايشين على المساعدات. يعني من البريطانيين، من الفرنسيين، من غير جنسيات عربية، إسلامية، غير إسلامية، عايشين على المساعدات، ووضعية يعني ما ينسكن بيها، يعني ما أقدر أوصفها.
With people descending from all parts of the world, often they come with all they have. Entire life savings in the hope to settle for a better, safer future. Sometimes people will invest some of their money inside the camp, establishing small businesses, catering for the population inside the jungle, with the added hope of nurturing some sort of livelihood. That being said, the vast majority still rely on handouts from outside charities, who each help in their own individual way. And with winter approaching, Adam from Love & Co is with his workmates, helping to build shelters for the refugees stuck out in the cold.
So we've come from Jersey, which is in the Channel Islands, and there's a young architect there, and he's been here, or he's had some involvement with this, and he's really passionate about doing something about the situation. So I'm a builder at home. I've got a team of people that work for me and with me, you know. So he approached me and said, would I help make some shelters and stuff, you know. So I thought, oh, you know, it's only like a weekend of my time. It's actually turned out to be a bit more, but when you get here, and even before we got here, it's not about time. It's not about the fact that you're working amongst feces and stuff like that. You just get on with it. And you know, when you can make a difference, there's one thing going into someone's house, rich family, and like doing a nice house, but to come here and actually put your skill to something to help people, you know, it's massive. The people are really nice. It's kind of a bit intimidating when you first drive in it, but you realise that they're all in need and they all help, you know, with what they can. As far as my involvement, I've got a family and stuff and a business, so I can't be coming here all the time, but as far as I know, the chap who's arranged this, he's trying to try and continuously do this with, you know, other builders and other teams of people like myself, you know. So basically we've just turned up with flat pack gear, which we've designed and assembled on site, and vans full of like tools for them, pots, pans, clothing, anything like that, you know, anything that we can squeeze in that's going to help them, you know. One of the only hurdles we've had is getting people on board, you know. You speak to one person, they're like, oh wow, that's great what you're doing, you know. One of my clients gave me £800, you know, just as a donation, so I really like what you're doing, blah blah blah. But then you bump into the next person, oh they're all immigrants, they're all economic minded, this, that and the other. To be quite honest, I don't know anything about any of that. I'm a bit ignorant when it comes to that. But it's not about what you know, it's just about this. It doesn't matter where he's come from or whether he deserves it or not. He's a human being in a situation.
Such projects highlight the humanity that exists deep down, an instinct we all have, but that which we often unfortunately suppress, citing the all too common excuses of time and opportunity, waiting for someone else to take the lead. In this very way, a few months ago, mother of four, Shabaz, embraced that inner instinct for what was to become something quite remarkable.
This all started when, my mum, she goes to me, she goes, listen, there's this problem in Calais. It's only 3 hours from home. Let's go. We picked a weekend and we made our first trip down there. There was an organisation, we liaised with them and we attended, we joined on with them, we went to the camp, we met loads of people. And from seeing the state of the place, I said to my mum, I have to come back. So the following weekend, booked another ferry, made the same journey, and this time I spent a lot more time interacting with people. And while I was talking with one of the guys, on his tent he had written Kuwait. And from my knowledge, Kuwait's quite a wealthy country. Kuwait looks after its people. I'm thinking, why on earth are there Kuwaitis in a refugee crisis? In the midst of the conversation, I noticed he was wearing a Dure Najaf and a Akik, and he had a tawiz around his neck, and they're all quite strong Shia symbols. And he saw me wearing an Akik, and he asked me, I also had a green band which is representative of Abu Fadl Abbas salamullahi alayhi, and he asked me, he goes, are you Shia? And I replied to him truthfully. I said, yes, I am. How about yourself? And he goes, yeah, I am. So I said, how many of you are there? And he goes, anything from around 400 to 500 of us. So I spoke to the guy. I was like, look, you're all my brothers. Literally, the closest thing I can have to a brother is you guys. What do you need? Do you want clothes? Do you want food? And just let me know what you need. And he goes, listen, we're happy. Like, not happy, but we're content. He grabbed my armband and he goes to me, he goes, if anything, bring me Hussein. And Sheikh Jafar Ladik was there to translate, and my eyes just swelled up with tears. I couldn't believe what he had just said. He goes, I don't want any of it. He goes, just bring me Hussein. And when we walked away from that conversation, I said to Sheikh Jafar Ladik, I said, we need to do something. This was a Sunday. And I said, we need to do something. And he goes, we definitely do. First thing Monday morning, Sheikh Jafar Ladik called me up. He goes, I've got donations on the line. Let's put this into action.
We contacted khutaba from across the world. We contacted people in Lebanon, we contacted people in Iraq, we contacted people in the States, we contacted people in Denmark, and there was all the challenges of putting this program together.
We needed to do a program for the 10 days of Muharram from scratch with 2 weeks. Most centres in the UK, they already have a centre, they've got connections, they've got funds, they've got speaker systems, they've got electricity, and it takes them, months and months of planning, months of organising to call a speaker down, timings and things like this. And here we have 2 weeks with the determination saying, listen, we have to do this. And it became a trial and error process. From the list, I sent out bulk text messages, WhatsApp groups, everything we could. My mother helped out, my father helped out. The friends just got the message out saying, listen, we need cooking pots, we need gas, we need firewood, we need banners, we need black cloths, we need flags, we need speaker systems, we need generators, we need petrol, we need everything to hold 10 days of majalis in the middle of nowhere.
We knew that without the speaker, the khatib, having a Muharram program would be very difficult. We could, provide CDs of khutbah and just provide, a CD player and have people gather in a tent and listen to a CD, or download something from YouTube onto a laptop or something of that nature. And amongst the challenges we had was that when we asked help from people, I'm very saddened to say, unfortunately, not everybody responded in the way in which we would have wanted. And so the refugees missed out for the first 3 days. But alhamdulillah, we managed to find a khatib from Sweden, and he flew into Gatwick, and then he was taken over in the ferry into see Calais. Alhamdulillah, we managed to get him in a hotel, and he did a phenomenal job. May Allah bless him, because it may be that other people would not want to serve in those conditions. But there was never a question of, how many people, what's my hadiyah. There was never a question of, this place is something that is, unbefitting of me to come and recite. He showed the true akhlaq of a servant of Imam Hussian alayhi salam, and took to it immediately and was overcome by what he saw. In fact, one of his reactions was that when he entered and he saw the tents and he saw the flags that we had placed onto the tents with the name of Imam Hussian alayhi salam, Labbaiki ya Zainab, when he saw this, he began to cry. And he said to himself, immediately I brought my mind to the 11th of Muharram, when the tents of Hussein alayhi salam were being burnt.
واقعا أنا تفاجأت مفاجأة كبيرة بل مذهلة، ما كنت أتوقع أنه الذي رأيته في عيني، لأنه ولا كنت أتوقع أنني في أوروبا. أنا عايش في أوروبا، زين. وكنت عندما كلمني أحد الخطباء قال لي أن في منطقة كاليه في فرنسا بحاجة إلى خطيب. طبعا قلت أنا خادم للحسين، أينما يوجهني الحسين أنا أذهب، ما عندي مانع. قال لي معسكر للاجئين. قلت ما مشكلة، ذولا أخواننا وأبنائنا وأيتام آل محمد، ونشر الدين والمعرفة هذا واجبنا احنا كمبلغين. وإذا كنت أتوقع أنه المعسكر يعني كرفانات مثلا، زين، قال أنه في خيمة كبيرة، كنت أتوقع أنه ليس بهذه الوضعية. والله أول ما دخلت إلى المعسكر عيناي أهملا دموعا، يعني لا أستطيع أن أصف ذاك الموقف. على كل حال نقول إلى الله المشتكى، لأنه هم شيعة أهل البيت. هسه الآن نتعامل احنا بإنسانية، هسه عوف شيعة، عوف سنة، عوف أي مذهب آخر. أنتم أيها الفرنسيون، أيها الأوروبيون، واضعين هالمساكين هذه الآلاف بهذه المنطقة، بعد يومين ثلاثة يصير شتاء قارص هنا، يعني ايش راح يموتون هالبشر؟ أين الإنسانية؟ أين الإنسانية؟ أين الإنسانية؟
The thought of so many Shias in such a situation seems so alien, surreal even. How can it be, and how will we here in our comfort to respond? As videos began to leak on social media, intrigue and interest began to rise. And now with the Sheikh confirmed right the way to Ashura and all other logistical boxes being ticked, every little piece to the jigsaw was coming together for what was going to be the first ever Muharram in the jungle.
سيقوم الشيخ العلامة عباس بإلقاء المحاضرة الدينية بذكر استشهاد سيدي ومولاي الإمام الحسين عليه السلام بجلوسه أفلح من صلى على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. ومن نور الله جل جلاله. ما زال قوسك سمو كل المصائب قد تهون.
and it was incredible how everything was put together, how everything just fell in place. Like the niyyah from all sides was just so pure. It was incredible. Like you'd think the work amount would be a burden, and yeah, I stressed out. I was thinking, how on earth am I going to be able to do this? But I promise you, I didn't even do much. It fell in place. I made 1 or 2 trips between speaking to the guy and before the 3rd of Muharram, and everything just fell in place. It was beyond incredible.
Once the flags went up saying Assalamu alaikum ya Aba Abdullah and the flags of Abu Fadl Abbas alayhi salam, these Pakistanis were walking past and they looked up and they said, oh, give us these flags as well. So when we went the time after the flags were erected, and we saw that there was flags really far away, and we walked there and we met these people. And what happened, it created a big bond and a big unity, and these people started caring for each other. They started actually giving their own stuff to each other. It became like a massive family, and this is all due to the majalis of Imam Hussian AS.
When you saw Imam Hussian AS' name being mentioned to them, the suggestion of having majlis, when you saw flags being brought to them, when you saw turba being brought to them, you could see immediately their eyes well up, their smiles change. It wasn't an ordinary smile. You were bringing a beloved to them, which they had left behind and possibly felt that they would not experience again, at least not this Muharram. And so when we brought the majlis to them, it was able to bring them possibly that little bit of hope and remembrance of Imam Hussian alayhi salam again. That he underwent the greatest of oppression. He was gharib, he was ostracized and sent out by his own community, as these individuals are and continue to be.
For us personally, we don't really speak Arabic, he said, and the majalis was obviously in Arabic. Now just sitting in the atmosphere, not even understanding the lecture, but just in the atmosphere myself, I felt so different. You feel the gham, but in a different kind of way, as in, you don't understand what he's saying, but you know what he's saying, as in, and I hope it makes sense, but just the atmosphere it created, just being inside that tent, with the Maulana crying in Arabic and everyone crying around him, you know where you are, you know what you're doing, and it's just a great feeling knowing that there's a possibility to help.
Imam alayhi salam is a haqq upon all of us, and so for us to be able to help deliver Imam Hussian alayhi salam's message to that camp, and for the Shia and the Muslims and all of those to be able to hear of that oppression, to re-establish their connection, was a joy for us, and I think as well a joy for them, because of the way in which they reacted and how much you could see it meant to them.
برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين وصلى الله على محمد وآل محمد أما
They're all followers of Imam Ali alayhi salam and Abu Abdullah al-Hussein salamullahi alayhi, but some of them haven't had a majalis for a couple of years. And for them to sit in one, you could see the emotion that they were going through, you could see the love and the passion that they have. They couldn't, in some sense, couldn't be happier that this was happening, if you can understand how I've said that.
When I went to the camp and I saw the majlis taking place and the speakers were out, and they just hugged and kissed me. They said, thank you for bringing us Hussein, thank you for bringing us Hussein. I understood how close he was to their heart. One of the strongest statements that was said to me, one guy, he said, they call this the jungle because it's fit for animals, and yesterday this was the jungle. And then he said to me, but today I have Hussein, now it is my home. That statement in itself rocked my world, because we don't understand what having Imam Hussein means, what Imam Hussian al-Islam is. It's from that statement that I realized that if you can call the jungle a home, if you can actually call that your home with a smile on your face and you mean it from your heart, you could see the glimmer in his eye, because Imam Hussian AS was there for them. It meant everything in the world.
هو التوفيق من الله سبحانه وتعالى، التوفيق من الله سبحانه وتعالى وفقنا بهذا المجلس الحسيني. ما كنا متوقعين بأنه نحصل على هيك خدمة أيضا، بس نشكر جزاهم الله ألف خير اللي أسسوا لنا هذا الموكب، والشباب قاموا بالخدمة الحسينية، والحمد لله والشكر. احنا ما كنا متوقعين، مثل ما قلت لك، ما كنا متوقعين بأنه يقيم مجلس حسيني هنا في مدينة كالي، ولأول مرة هو هذا يعني المجلس قام في كالي، مدينة كالي في فرنسا. جزاهم الله ألف خير الشباب من بريطانيا أن أسسوا لنا هذا الموكب. أنا بالنسبة لي خادم الحسين يعني من زمان، وما كنت متوقع بأنه السنة قلت يعني الحمد لله يعني يجوز، يعني ما متوفق يعني بخدمة الإمام الحسين، وما قصر الله وبركات أهل البيت الحمد لله والشكر، ما قصروا بأنه الشباب جابوا لنا ذول الشباب وأسسوا لنا هذا الموكب. جزاهم الله خير، وقمنا بخدمة الإمام الحسين عليه السلام، ونحمد الله ونشكره.
وعدد بالما يسكن ولي أدرك، وعدد بالما يسكن ولي أدرك، وعدد بالما يسكن ولي أدرك. يا عباس سندك ابن المرتضى، يا عباس سندك ابن المرتضى، يا عباس هل عد جامع روضته، يا عباس هل عد جامع روضته، يا عباس من السهر ولا أكبر من السهر والنار، يخاف الله فينا. ماكو أحد، ماكو جواب. ربابة سلام الله عليها كان عندها طفل رضيع من الحسين عمره 6 أشهر، أتت به إلى زينب، يا زينب خذوا رضيعكم قبل أن يموت من العطش، أراه قد ذرنا الشفاة. زينب بدورها وان ودت للحسين عليه السلام، أخذه الحسين. يقول الراوي نحن نعلم أن الحسين إذا أراد أن يأتي إلى الوعظ يركب جملا، وإذا أراد أن يقاتل. حسين يا زينب وين سويت حاج حسين، 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 وظلمت على حاج حسين، يا زينب وين سويت 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 حاج حسين، يا زينب على الغدوة والدين، يا زينب وين سويت حاج حسين، ونص القرابة تدمع العين، يا زينب وين سويت حاج حسين.
With majalis now set, attention turned to catering for the lovers of Imam al-Hussein. Shabazz and his family, along with the donors at home and the shias on the ground, began preparing food for the hundreds of people attending the majalis, as well as anyone passing by. With the most basic means, the shias on the ground managed every detail efficiently and precisely. Soon people from all over the camp were flocking outside the Husayniyah. Each majalis brought with it an added check of reality, that truly the commemoration of Aba Abdullah al-Hussein was happening in the most unlikely of places. Like nowhere else on earth, this was Muharram in the jungle.
We've got to understand some of the refugees are from places like Somalia, Sudan, and countries that are not very familiar or do not have majlises. So they were interested, and they came along, they had a look, didn't really understand it, but towards the end of the programs they were asking questions, and some of them were quite appalled to find out how Imam Hussian AS was savagely murdered in Karbala, what happened to his family, and some of them even attended the later majalises, especially the one on Ashura Day.
One of the refugees told me that there was, on the second night that they were doing the lecture, there was a Somalian who was standing outside the tent, and he was just walking by, and he saw these speakers and he heard something in Arabic, so he came closer to see what it was. And he sat by the speaker and he just started listening to who is this Imam Hussian and what's his story. So he was listening to the speaker and everything, and before you knew it, within 10 minutes there was tears rolling down his face.
We had non-Muslims, especially media, other volunteers who were asking what is this all about. We explained to them the whole story of Karbala, who Imam Hussian AS was, and they were very, very interested. In fact, one guy even asked me for a book about the whole incident, so alhamdulillah.
As the 5th of the month approached, a phone call confirmed the visas for the entire family who had planned to go and visit Karbala for Ashura. What was to be? Were they to stay or to leave for Iraq?
We've got a family WhatsApp group, and conversation just started going. Who's going to go? Who's not going to go? We're all on one group. Can we all go? And I sat down with the Sheikh, and I sat down with a couple of other guys, and I was like, listen, my visa has come through for Iraq. Would it be feasible for me to go? And instinctively everyone will obviously say, listen, you've got a visa to Iraq, like Imam Hussein's like called you, why would you not go? You have to go. And I started looking for people to come along to replace my position in basically just transporting the Sheikh from a hotel to the camp every day and bringing him back once the majalis is over. And just looking after him, bringing him food, making sure he's okay and things like that. That was really the only responsibility I had. All the cooking, all the planning, everything was done by the people from the camp. And unfortunately I couldn't find anyone on such short notice as well, and there's no one to blame. So I sat back and analysed the situation again, and I said to the rest of my family, I was like, listen, you guys go. I don't think I can, I've taken on this commitment and I have to see it through. There's 400-500 people dependent on a Muharram based on whether I can find transport for this Sheikh. I was sitting having shisha with some of the refugees, and one guy comes along and he goes, oh, these guys, they're going Karbala tomorrow. Mahmoud or Abu Shabaz and his son, they're not going, they're staying here. And the other guy was so baffled, he goes, why would they do this? Then he's like, Wallahi, are you crazy? Why would you do this? So the guy replied saying, I heard that they're not going because they would rather use that money to give towards the camp and help the people that are struggling over there.
I've never been to Imam Hussian AS on the day of Ashura, and it's one of the great ziyarats, and I pray that one day inshallah I will go. However, seeing these people, their loneliness, seeing them in tents and seeing the way they live, them being stateless and homeless, I couldn't leave them, and I said to myself, what would my Imam want me to do? Would he want me to go and visit him to fulfill my own desires, or would he want me to go and be with people who love him, who think of him in their hardest times, who hold on to him as a beacon of light? Inshallah, I will go with these people's prayers to Karbala for Ashura, inshallah, next year. But if I again had to sacrifice it to bring these people Imam Hussian, there's no doubt in my mind that I'd be very willing to do that.
When we were in Karbala, you know how you must have seen on documentaries, pictures and videos and everywhere, how there's mokibs everywhere between Najaf and Karbala, or even around Najaf and around Karbala, where they have the speakers and they're serving chai, Abu Ali and all these things. And when you're in the refugee camp in Calais, if you see the documentary from Ahlulbayt TV, you will actually not even realise there's a difference. For example, one of the videos I saw was when the majalis was happening in the refugee camp, but the video was from outside the tent. And you see the flag flying, and you see the guys serving chai to everybody, and you hear the majalis coming from the speaker. It's just like you're in Iraq. There's for me, everywhere I stepped, when I was in Karbala, every step I took, it reminded me that this is what it looks like in the refugee camp, and that's what it looks like in the refugee camp. And it's hard to compare. That's Europe and this is Iraq. But on the other hand, you know, they're both Shia from Imam Ali. You know, from refugee camp in Calais, it was just something. Like he said, it's not something you want to forget, but it does plant a root in your mind that you remember of them every step you take.
Yeah, and there's other thing. Remember, every time we went to the marketplaces, every time, especially here, we'd just be like, oh gosh, should we get this for the refugees? Let's get some Zulfiqars for the refugees. Let's get some bands for the refugees. Let's get this, let's get that. Let's get them a flag, because they're so proud of being Shia. They're so proud of their love for the Ahlulbayt. And what better way to express it than something that's come from the holy land of Karbala?
You see even in the refugee camp, that red flag flying, it just shows the love they have, the love of Imam Ali.
For the last 3 or 4 days, I went every single day up to Calais, every single day back, taking food supplies, and there was some need for bandages, etc., so on and so forth. We had the speaker system blow up, so we had to arrange for a new speaker system and take that down, new mixers, etc., so on and so forth. So there's many logistical problems we had. On the day before Friday, I took down a lot of meat and a lot of rice, and the guys, they cooked from, I think it was 1 o'clock in the morning until about 10:30 in the morning, 9.5 hours, and they actually fed, I think, 4,000 or 5,000 people, if I'm not wrong, and everybody had very full stomachs, and the barakat was amazing, and the food was amazing. It's just the effort they put in, because one of the things is in London, we have all the cookers, we can increase the gas, lower the gas, and we still burn things. These guys were cooking for a lot of people, and what they did was they got some bricks and some wood, and they said, right, we'll burn a fire, and they started cooking it, and they were increasing and decreasing the heat by using a stick to move wood out, wood in. It's as if they had adapted to their surroundings, and they didn't burn it, they made it absolutely perfect.
As the night of Ashura drew close, a different atmosphere gripped the camp, a tension, an apprehension, a feeling unique like no other, experienced but never explained. For in the words of Imam Hussian AS, "La yawmuka yawm ya Aba Abdullah," surely there is no day like your day, ya Aba Abdullah. Plans were put in place to cook for the entire camp, 5,000 people to be fed. In turns they took it cooking, while others lamented the tragedy of Imam al-Hussein. In this way the entire night was spent.
For the day of Ashura, I had some more people other than myself to accompany me in Calais, and I haven't mentioned so far, there's also a Shia community of Pakistanis. There's a Pakistani Shia community as well from Parachinar who are actually in the camp due to Taliban's oppression on Shias. So I have a friend who can speak Urdu and he gives lectures. I gave him a call, I gave other people calls, an Urdu reciter, and I said, listen, I know it's a big ask, but for the day of Ashura, would it be possible for you to come down and, give them, equally give them the Muharram they deserve and the remembrance of Abu Abdullah salamullahi alayhi as well? And incredibly, they said yes. They said, yeah, of course we'll come down. So we had a reciter, we had a speaker, and a couple of other guys to come down. My dad came, my cousins came, some of my dad's friends. We had, mashallah, we had about 15 people come from London simply for the day of Ashura to spend it in Calais with these refugees.
The Shias living in Parachinar live under a constant threat from the Taliban. Often ignored by the authorities, they have experienced massacres of all kinds, from indiscriminate suicide bombings to targeted assassinations just for the fact that they hold on to the wilayah of Imam Ali. Speaking to them, they would love to return to their home and have nothing to do with the jungle they find themselves in. However, with bounties on their heads, it's too dangerous for them to return.
I've never ever travelled on the day of Ashura in my life, except from my home to the Husseini. This was the first time I'd actually travelled outside of my own particular area. But going there, I was closer to Karbala. I get emotional because I remember the day. When I got to the camp, my first thoughts were Imam Hussian AS and Hazrat Abbas AS. And only a day before I'd heard the story and the narration of when Hazrat Abbas AS was martyred, and how Imam Hussian AS found it very hard, or could not go and say to Sayyidah Zainab Salamu alayhi that Abbas is no more. So he knocked the stand of his tent down to give them notification. And it affected me because as I drove in, there was a young guy and his tent had collapsed, and it brought reality to me of what Karbala was like. I could vision it. And when I saw these people, they were all sitting there cooking, crying, listening to Marcia, Noha, some Masaib, and all of them were just very quiet. There was no joking, no laughing. It was very sad. You could cut the atmosphere with a knife, as they say. And spending the day there, it was cold, it was dirty, it was mucky. It was not easy, but I actually loved it, and I wish I could spend every Ashura like that, because I really felt something different. My spiritualness was better. My closeness to the day of Karbala was better. I wasn't hugging, kissing. I didn't laugh, joke. There was nothing like that. It was just a whole day of mourning, and it was remarkable. It was absolutely remarkable for me.
The Sheikh started around 10 o'clock with the Maqtal of Abu Abdullah Salamullahi alayhi. He went on for around 2.5 hours through till the time of Dhuhr. And I don't understand Arabic. However, sitting in the majlis and having spent the entire night, the Layl of Ashura or Shab Ashur, with these guys cooking the niyaz, that some of the people are tired, but we stayed up, we pushed through. At the end of the day, it's for the sake of Abu Abdullah Salamullahi alayhi. And sitting in that majalis, sitting in the Maqtal of Abu Abdullah, not even understanding anything, other than the names that are being said, Qasim, Abbas, Abu Fadl, Hussein, Abdullah. Other than knowing the names, I couldn't keep up with the majalis or the Maqtal. But to see the emotion, to see the passion, the burning flame that Imam Ja'far Sadiq talks about in the hearts of a mu'min, it was overwhelming. I've been lucky enough to do Ashura in Karbala, and I felt that Karbala had come to France. If there's no way through words that I can explain to you how Ashura went in Calais, because it was as if I was in Karbala all over again. The Maqtal, the recitations, the tears, the shouting, the cries, it was overwhelming. It was I don't think there are words that could explain it. And for these guys, they don't get that. It was an outburst of emotion for their love of Abu Abdullah that they'd been holding in for so many years that they haven't had an Ashura. And to see that was satisfying for myself, and for them as well, to be able to mourn Abu Abdullah the way they want to. Even the Shaykh said to me, he goes, that it was incredible. He goes, I would never, on the day of Ashura, he goes, from the moment I sat down to the moment we actually left the tent, at no point did he ever feel like he was in a refugee camp. He said he felt like he was in a Husseiniya, as he would be anywhere in the world. He compared it to his hometown in Najaf. He goes, it was like Ashura in Najaf.
Straight after the Maqtal, the way they got up, I have never seen a group of people mourn Imam Hussian AS with such fervence, with such love and such grief in their heart.
ولعن الله الماهدين لهم بالتمكين من قتالكم. برعت إلى الله وإليكم منهم ومن أشيائهم واتباعهم وأوليائهم يا أبا عبد الله.
They were all in tears, and the tears didn't stop. The tears carried on for maybe half an hour, 40 minutes. They were all sitting in corners, just gathering their thoughts. And to me, I felt on top of this world that my son and the Alim Ammar Sheikh Jafar had somehow come across a situation where they actually created this whole thing.
After the Maqtal and the Matam, food was readied for the entire camp. Hundreds of refugees from all over the world lined up for the food prepared in the name of Imam al-Hussein. As they stood in wait, they couldn't help but take in the somber mood engulfing the Husayniyya as Matam rung out from the speakers outside the tent. As nightfall set in, a calm yet cutting silence took over the camp. Maghrib Salat was offered, after which the Sham-e-Ghariba majalis was given, remembering the women folk of the household of the Prophet, left alone in Karbala, under the dark cries of the night.
Every time I return home, when I get in bed, in my house, my room's in the extension, so I've got an electric heater, and every time I switch that heater on, the room gets warm quite quickly. I jump in my bed. I've got a nice, comfortable mattress. It pains. I actually feel pain. In that, these people, they're older than me, they're people I'd respect, probably call uncle, and they're living in these conditions over in Calais. It's crazy. So it's back to using wood for fire. Caveman lifestyle over there, and here we have roofs over our heads, houses that aren't going to blow over in the wind, and warm bedrooms to go back to. It hurts. It really does.
Once I visited these camps in Calais, and I've seen poverty before, but the effect this had on me is a lot greater, for the simple fact that sometimes we have things around us that we don't need, and sometimes we go and buy stuff because we're pressured by peers and society, because we think, oh, well, we need this because blah blah's got it, or we need to be ostentatious or pretentious in some form or manner, and we don't. Because to be honest with you, I'm not saying I've lived the best of lives. I've spent my money ridiculously sometimes, but it's given me a new view on life altogether, because once these brothers are sorted out, there's more and there's more and there's more, and it's people like us who've been chosen. We're lucky, we're fortunate that we are in a position that we can do something, because if you're in a position of those other people who have nothing, they can't help anyone, because they just need to help themselves. But we're in a position where we can clean our sins by spending, by helping, by assisting. Nobody's saying sell your house, but I don't think we need to be over-eccentric, especially with all this designer wear stuff that we are into, and, you know, posting our Rolexes and all that sort of stuff on Instagram. Because believe me, brothers, when these guys see them, a brother over there will say, why has this Pakistani got the right to be in the UK and I haven't? Why has this Iraqi got the right to be in the UK and I haven't? Why does he have the opportunity to have this life and I don't? And we don't want to be the cause of that. We have to understand that some of our showing off, our posing, what effect it causes other people. When I go home now and I close my front door and I sit down on my sofa after making myself a cup of coffee, and I think they're drinking their tea in the freezing cold, my heat is on, I'm sitting on my sofa, they're sitting on the floor. And it angers me a little bit, because sometimes I feel it's not justified. And I think we as a community, and there's a lot of us here, need to do a lot more for these people, because it's us who can eradicate poverty. We know other people won't. There's lots of people who don't care. They don't feel it. And let me tell you something, by saying, okay, let me donate £100 or £200 or 500 or 1,000 or 5,000 or 10,000, it's not a solution. A solution is actually saying, I'm going to make a brother out of someone who's poor and accept him as my brother. I'm going to adopt him as my brother, and I'm going to change his life. And if thousands of us do that, then thousands of lives will change. We need to stop sitting in the comfort of our own homes, and we need to go to these places ourselves. We need to say, let me go to Calais, like my son did. My son didn't need anyone to hold his hand. My son, I believe, is a greater man than me, because he's led me on to this. And by going there, everything falls into place. You realize how wasteful we are as a community, and how it will change you as a person for the better. And these are the deeds that will save us in our graves, inshallah.
So you drive your car out, you go back onto the ferry, and immediately you're surrounded by luxury, things that you and I take for granted. And those individuals are living in such a level of poverty that the 50p or the pound or the dollar that I very easily spend is something very precious to them, and they make stretch for a very long time. So you feel very grateful immediately, but you also feel very saddened that you are going back into your world of comfort and warmth and protection and knowledge of where your immediate destiny lies, whereas those thousands of people in Calais and hundreds of thousands around the world now, they don't even have such basic amenities.
God is so merciful, and you're bestowed with so many blessings you don't even realize it. For example, when I've returned from the refugee camp and I'm on my way home or on the way to the hotel, I sit there thinking, I had somewhere to go tonight, whereas some of these people, they're just sitting in a tent without any future. They don't know what's going to happen with their life. They're not sure if they're going to end up in the UK. They're not sure if they're going to get deported back home. And there was one guy from the group of Pakistanis who unfortunately passed away on the train on his way to the UK, and they're just thinking that, is it worth taking the risk? Yeah, they want to get money back to their families and stuff, but is it worth taking that risk and risking their life? Because they're just human beings at the end of the day. And you whoever's watching this, just understand how lucky you are for everything that you've got around you, because not everyone has what you have.
As an individual, it changes you because, as I stated earlier, you're exposed to the realities of the situation. When you see it on TV, you're not really exposed. There is a barrier between you and reality. Only when you sit with those individuals, you hug them, you hear their stories firsthand, are you exposed. And so that can only bring development an evolution of the soul, a broader perspective as to what humanity is undertaking. I'd like to say this. We as a human community, we are capable of anything we want. We wanted to fly, we created crafts to be able to jettison not just to the other side of the world, but to the moon itself. We wanted to delve to the depths of the seas, miles below. We created crafts to be able to do so. The extent of the human capacity is completely unknown, yet we still have not been able to create a just and balanced world. There is something wrong. That means that our efforts are being misguided, and how we see our capacity is also wrong. We break every limitation when it comes to science and technology and medicines. There is a disease, I must find the solution to defeat the disease. When it comes to poverty, refugee crisis, we do the very minimal we can to tick the box and say, I've done what I needed to do, now God will be pleased with me, and somehow now I deserve heaven because I, raised £100 or I gave £100. This is the poverty of thought that we live in today. The reality is what they need is two things. They need solutions. They need people who have access to solutions, people who are in medicine, people who are in law, people who have businesses, to be able to reach out to them and to be able to assist them by giving them solutions to lift them out of the circumstances in which they're in. The second is that they need people to give their time up. You see, what we haven't done, by and large, is actually go to those places of poverty and sit with those who are in need. We haven't heard the stories directly from the mouths of the widows, from the orphans, from those who have traveled great distances. And so the second thing we need is people to actually partake in the upliftment of these individuals, to go, to see it for themselves, to advocate on their behalf.
Whether this would be an ongoing commitment, whether this is something that would happen on an annual basis, I hope not. I genuinely hope that this isn't something that becomes a regularity, that refugees don't have access to a Husseiniya. At the end of the day, I pray that I pray every day, after every prayer, and at any time that I remember them, I pray that they find a safe location where they can live life like a human. One of the Pakistani brothers mentioned to me, he goes, my whole life we've lived like animals. He goes, I've been oppressed in my hometown, I got kicked out, I've traveled so far. You think, oh, Europe, human rights, and they've got so many regulations and refugee aid and things like this. He goes, I just moved from zoo to zoo, or jungle to jungle, as he said. And, I just pray that God relieve them of this burden or of this stress that they have, and that they find a safe place, whether it be in London, whether it be in the UK, whether it be somewhere else in the world, where they can just live lives like a normal human, where they can commemorate the tragedy of Abu Abdullah without going to such extreme extents, where they can work for a living, where they're not oppressed due to being Shi'i, and where they have rights as an individual and as a human, and that is genuinely, I really hope I don't have to do it again. But if the situation is and someone needs to do it, then inshallah there will always be people out there, and I believe that there are others around the world who possess the same passion as the Sheikh, as the others that assisted myself, and if it's not myself, then someone else will put in place a Muharram for those who don't have access to a mosque or a Husseiniya.
Hey!
الصلوات